Hi guys, this video is continuing on from the previous video where we made a speedboat. This time we're going to make a sailboat. So I'm going to start off in the same way. I'll delete the default cube by pressing X and delete. Then I'll click on Z to get an overhead 2D view. I'm going to add a circle, go into edit mode, click on the vertex at the bottom of the circle, choose proportional editing, press G and Y, and then pull this down, scroll with the scroll wheel until I get a shape that I like for the front of my boat. Now click on the back vertex, press G and Y again, pull it out. Now for a sailboat, you probably want your boat to be tapered at both ends, so more like a long ellipse shape, a bit like that. Now I'm going to press A to select everything, press E to pull it into 3D, press Z to keep it straight, and then just move down a little bit and click. Then press S. My proportional editing is still on there, so don't forget to turn off proportional editing. Press S, taper in the sides a bit, and then repeat. So press E, press Z, pull it down, click, press S, taper it in, click, press E, press Z, pull it down, click, press S, taper it in a little bit, and click. Now, once you've done enough to create a realistic boat shape, you can press F to fill in the bottom of the boat. Let's do the top of the boat as well. So to do that, I'm going to hold down Alt and click on one of the vertices at the top of the boat. That will select all of the rim of the boat. Now I'm going to press E and Z and just lift it up a tiny little bit, and then press S and move it in a bit. Then I'm going to press E and Z, and this time I'm going to move it down a bit because we're hollowing out an area inside the boat, and then press F to fill in the top. And there we've got our boat shape with a deck that's inset slightly from the bow, I guess, the outside of the boat. Okay, we've made the shape of the body of the boat, so let's go back into object mode. Now I want to add a mast, so I'm going to go to Add, Mesh, and choose a cylinder. Now this is going to be the mast. The first thing I have to do is shrink it down, make it much thinner. So I'll press S, and then I want to shrink it in every direction except the Z direction. So I'm going to press Shift and Z, and then that will allow me to make the mast thinner until it's about the right size, maybe something like that. Now I'll press S and Z to make it longer in the Z direction. And then I'll press G and Z to move it up until I position it in the center of the boat. Okay. Now, all of the next stuff is going to be much easier to do in 2D. So what I recommend is that you click on X in order to get a 2D view from the X axis. Okay, so when we click on the X, it shows you everything in 2D facing on from the X-axis. Now what I'm going to do is click on the mast, and I'll press Shift and D to make a copy of the mast and just move it over here. Now I'll press R to rotate the mast and turn it around. Now I'll press S and S and Y to shrink it in a little bit. And then I'm just going to position it down here. This is going to be the second part of the mast, what I believe is called the boom. And now we're going to add a sail. So again, I'm going to go Add, Mesh, and add a plane. Now a plane is a square. If I just move it over here, it looks like a line at the moment because we're looking at it from the edge. So in order to rotate it, I'll press R, and then I'll type Y and then 90, and that will rotate it 90 degrees so that I can see the side of the square. Now I'll just move it over here because it's going to go in this space, but actually I want the sail to be a triangle, not a square. So I'll switch to edit mode, and then I'm going to click in the top left corner, press X and delete that vertex. That leaves me with the other three vertices. Now I'm going to press A to select all three vertices and just press F to fill it in and make a triangle. Okay, now I'm going to press S to scale the triangle And I'll press Z because I want to scale it on the Z axis, and just pull it out until it's about the right size to fit as a sail onto my boat. There we go. Okay, I might just adjust this slightly so that the sail fits a little bit better. Try to make it fit as well as it possibly can. Okay, I think that's pretty much right. There we go. Okay, now we've done all of the modeling to get the sail, but now we want to be able to basically make this sail behave like cloth, right? We want it to billow in the wind. So it's actually very easy to do this in Blender. First of all, we click on the sail, and then if you go over to the right hand side, you can see this icon, which looks a little bit like an atom, and it is a physics simulation. So when you click on it, you've got all of these options for simulating the physics of different things. We want to simulate cloth, so I click on cloth, and now this triangle will start to behave like cloth when we start an animation. Now you can start an animation by clicking the play button or just by pressing the spacebar. So if I press the spacebar, what actually happens is that this cloth basically falls off into the abyss. So that's because we have some gravity and this cloth isn't attached to anything, so it just falls. In order to attach the cloth, what we're going to do is first of all select the cloth, go to edit mode. Now, before we do any attachment, I actually need to subdivide this cloth. So I'm going to right click and go to subdivide, and we're going to split the cloth up into lots of smaller shapes. So increase the number of cuts here to 10. The more cuts you have, the more accurate your simulation is going to be. 10 is about the maximum that you can get with a single subdivide. I'm pretty sure there are ways to subdivide more, but it doesn't matter. 10 will do for now. Okay, so now we've subdivided our surface, and what we want to do is pin the sail onto the mast. The way we do that is actually by just clicking on each of the three vertices. So these are the three vertices at the edges of the triangle. I click on the top vertex, then hold down Shift, click on the bottom right vertex, and then still holding down Shift, click on the bottom left vertex. Now, if we go over here, we've got this icon which looks like a triangle, and click on that, and we're going to add a vertex group. So you just click plus. Let's give this vertex group a name. So I double click on it, and I'm going to call it Sail Vertices, and press enter. Now we need to make sure that those three vertices, the top, bottom right and the bottom left, are selected, and no other vertices should be selected. And then you click assign, and basically the sail vertices are now those 3 points on our sail, and those are going to be used to fix the sail in place. So I go back to the physics tab, and I scroll down to the bottom where we should see an option shape, click on that, and then where it says pin group, I'll click here and choose sail vertices. Okay, now we can come out of object mode, and if I press space, then you might see that the sail is very slightly bending, not very much, but very slightly it's bending under the weight of the material. Now, we really want the sail to bend a bit more than that, so what I'm going to do is add some wind. We go to add, force field, and then wind, and that will create a wind force field. Now, just press R to rotate it a little bit. Let's rotate it around like this. And then I'm going to press G to move it over to the side. And then we want to increase the strength of the force field. So go over here to the physics tab again, and then you'll see it says type wind strength 1. As you increase the strength, the space between the rings extends, and you want the first ring at least to overlap the sail. So this creates a wind force blowing onto the sail. Now, if I start the animation now, we should see that the sail blows fairly realistically in the wind. Now I'm going to move the animation back to the beginning. Now, the sail doesn't blow that much, and that's because it is quite tightly attached to those three vertices that we made earlier on. Let's say that you want your sail to billow a lot more than that. All you need to do is select the sail, choose the physics tab, scroll down to where we previously added the pin group, and then underneath the pin group you'll see there's another option called shrink factor. Now this allows you to shrink or grow the cloth, and if we make the cloth bigger, then that means that it has more cloth to billow out. So that means making a negative shrink factor. I would recommend something like minus 0.01, but you can experiment with different values. So with minus 0.01 we get something which looks a bit like that, which I think is fairly realistic. If you make the value even smaller, even more negative, then we can get really massive cloth. So you can see there we're blowing quite a large cloth out. I mean, maybe that is quite realistic as well. It kind of depends. Like the more you decrease it, the bigger that cloth is going to get. There we've got a really big cloth. Now, that's definitely not realistic. So I think if you had a cloth that big, the boat wouldn't travel very well. So I actually think I liked it more about 0.1, something like that. Let's just test it again. I think that looks pretty good. Now, of course, we don't really want the wind blowing from the side. So what I would recommend finally is that if we go to the overhead view and then we select the cloth and the mast and the wind, and then what we can do is just rotate the whole lot around, a bit like that, maybe reposition the mast a bit, and now we should be able to get the wind blowing from behind the boat, and I think that creates a fairly realistic sail. I might make the wind a little bit stronger again, increase the strength. Let's see how that affects the shape of the sail. And there we go. I think that's a pretty convincing boat shape. The sail is pretty convincing. The boat shape is not convincing because even I, who know nothing about boats, can see it's not the most perfect boat design. I'll maybe add some smooth shading to the bottom of the boat, add smooth shading to the sail. And then I think if you study some boat pictures and you more accurately recreate the structure of a real sailboat, then you could have something very convincing here, a very convincing model of a sailboat. So guys, I hope that shows you, at least in theory, how to create a convincing model of a sailboat, and I'll look forward to seeing what you can come up with.